Some houses are abandoned because they are old. Some houses are abandoned because no one wants to live there. But sometimes, a house is abandoned for a far darker reason. At the end of a lonely dirt road in the Thai countryside stands a wooden house that has swallowed more than one family. People say strange things happen inside those walls. Children's laughter in empty rooms. Footsteps on the stairs when no one is there. And shadows in the windows watching anyone who passes by. Tonight, we are going to hear the terrifying story of the family who moved into that house and never came out again. Chapter 1. The house no one dared to live in. In a quiet rural district of Suphan-Buri province, there was a narrow dirt road that stretched across endless sugarcane fields. The road looked ordinary during the day, dusty, silent, and forgotten by most travelers. But those who lived nearby knew that the road led to a place no one liked to talk about. At the very end of that road stood an old wooden house. The house had once been painted white, but years of rain and heat had turned the walls gray and peeling. The wooden boards creaked even when the wind was still, and the tall grass around the yard had grown wild, as if nature itself was trying to swallow the house whole. For nearly 10 years, no one had lived there. The villagers avoided the place whenever possible. Farmers working late in the fields would take longer routes home just to keep their distance from the old property. They had a name for it. Not an official name. Just a whisper that passed between people in the village. The house of the dead family. Years ago, a family had lived there, a father, a mother, and 2 young children. But one night, something terrible happened. Some people said the house had caught fire in the middle of the night. Others believed something far darker had taken place inside those walls. The official story claimed it was an accident. The villagers did not believe that. Because after the tragedy, strange things began to happen. People walking past the road after sunset often heard the sound of children running across wooden floors. Late at night, faint laughter sometimes drifted from the empty house. On certain evenings, when the moonlight shone through the broken windows, silhouettes could be seen standing on the second floor. A man, a woman, 2 children, just standing there, watching the road, watching anyone who passed by. But those who had looked too closely always said the same thing afterward. Something about the figures was terribly wrong. Their faces looked pale. Their bodies were still. And where their eyes should have been, there was nothing. Just darkness. So the house remained empty. Year after year. Waiting in silence at the end of the dirt road. As if it were waiting for another family to come. Chapter 2. The new family. The old wooden house had stood empty for nearly a decade. Dust covered the windows, weeds swallowed the yard, and the wooden gate had almost fallen apart from years of neglect. The villagers had grown used to seeing the house exactly that way, silent, abandoned, and untouched. That was why everyone in the village noticed immediately when a truck appeared on the dirt road one cloudy afternoon. The engine rumbled slowly as it moved through the tall grass and stopped in front of the old gate. Inside the truck was a family of 4. The father, Prosert, was a mechanic who had recently lost his job in the city. Life in Bangkok had become too expensive, and he had been searching for somewhere cheap to start over. The mother, Nalan, worked at a small food stall and hoped the quiet countryside would give her children a safer place to grow up. In the backseat were their 2 children. Lek, their 12-year-old son, quiet and curious, and Molly, their 8-year-old daughter, cheerful and full of questions about everything she saw. When the truck stopped, Prosert stepped out and looked at the house. It was old, yes. But it was big. Bigger than any house they could ever afford in the city. He turned to his wife with a hopeful smile. This place just needs a little fixing. Nalan looked at the cracked wooden walls and the broken balcony rail. For a moment, she felt an uncomfortable chill run through her body, even though the afternoon air was warm. "Are you sure this place is okay?" she asked quietly. Prosert nodded. "The price was unbelievably cheap. We were lucky to get it." That was true. The man who sold the house had rushed the deal, barely asking any questions. He only said that the previous owners had moved away years ago. Nothing more. No explanation. No details. As the family began unloading their belongings, a figure stood watching them from far down the road. An old woman from the village. Her name was Mei Chan. She leaned on her walking stick and stared at the house for a long time. Her face was pale. Her eyes were filled with something between fear and sadness. Finally, she whispered to herself in a trembling voice. They shouldn't have come here. The house does not belong to the living anymore. The wind suddenly passed through the sugarcane fields. And for a brief moment, one of the upstairs windows of the house slowly creaked open.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 3. The Footsteps at 3:17 a.m. The first night in the old house felt strangely quiet. Outside, the countryside of Suphanburi was wrapped in darkness. The sugarcane fields stretched endlessly under the faint light of the moon. And the wind moved slowly through the tall leaves, creating a soft whisper that never seemed to stop. Inside the house, the Prossert family had finally settled down after a long day of unpacking. Lek and Molly quickly fell asleep in their small bedroom upstairs. Prossert, exhausted from carrying heavy furniture, was already snoring quietly beside his wife. Only Nayland struggled to sleep. Something about the house felt wrong. She could not explain it. The walls seemed too quiet. The air inside the house felt heavy, and every small sound made her uneasy. Eventually, sometime after midnight, exhaustion finally pulled her into sleep. Then suddenly, creak! Nayland's eyes snapped open. At first she thought it was the wind. But then she heard it again. A slow sound coming from upstairs. Creak, creak? Like someone stepping carefully across old wooden floorboards. Her heart began to pound. She turned toward the small clock beside the bed. The red digital numbers glowed faintly in the darkness. 3:17 a.m. The footsteps came again. Creak. Creak. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Nayland quickly shook her husband's shoulder. Prossert, wake up. He groaned and turned over. What is it? Listen. For a moment, there was silence. Then, creak. Prossert frowned. That's upstairs. But the kids are asleep. Nayland whispered nervously. Prossert sat up and rubbed his eyes. It's probably Lek going to the bathroom. But something about the sound bothered him. The footsteps did not move like a child's. They were slower. Heavier. As if an adult were walking carefully in the dark. Prossert stood up and grabbed a flashlight from the table. I'll check. He stepped into the hallway and slowly climbed the wooden stairs. Each step groaned beneath his weight. When he reached the top, he shone the flashlight down the narrow corridor. The light revealed only empty walls and closed doors. The house was completely silent. Lek, he called quietly. No answer. Molly? Still nothing. Prossert walked toward the children's room and gently pushed the door open. Both children were fast asleep in their beds. The room was peaceful. Too peaceful. Prossert frowned. He was certain he had heard footsteps. He stood there for a moment, listening carefully. Nothing. Finally, he sighed and turned around. But the moment he stepped back into the hallway, he heard it. Right behind him. A small sound. Soft. Like a child's quiet giggle. Prossert froze. Slowly, very slowly, he turned around. But the hallway behind him was empty. Only darkness. And the faint smell of something strange in the air. Something like burnt wood. Chapter 4. Molly's new friend. The morning after the strange footsteps, the house felt almost normal again. Sunlight poured through the cracked windows, filling the old wooden rooms with warm light. The sounds of birds and distant farmers working in the fields replaced the uneasy silence of the night. Prossert convinced himself that what he had heard must have been nothing. Old houses made strange noises all the time. Wood expanded, floorboards shifted, the wind moved through broken spaces in the walls. There had to be a simple explanation. Still, the faint smell of burnt wood that lingered in the upstairs hallway that morning made him uncomfortable. But life continued. Nayland prepared breakfast in the kitchen while the children sat at the table. Lek quietly ate his rice and eggs. Half asleep. Molly, however, seemed unusually cheerful. She swung her legs happily under the chair and kept glancing toward the staircase that led upstairs. Finally she said something that made the room fall silent. "Mom, I made a new friend." Nayland smiled gently. "That's nice. Who is it?" Molly pointed toward the ceiling. "Her." Nayland frowned slightly. "Her?" "The girl upstairs." Prossert looked up from his plate. "What girl?" Molly spoke as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "She lives here." Prossert exchanged a quick look with Nayland. "There's no one else living here, Molly," he said. But the girl shook her head. "Yes, there is." "What does she look like?" Nayland asked carefully. Molly thought for a moment. "She's about my age. She wears a white dress. And her hair is very long." For a moment, the room was quiet. Then Molly added one more sentence. A sentence that made the air in the kitchen suddenly feel cold. "She doesn't have eyes." Nayland's hand froze in the middle of wiping the table. "What do you mean?" Molly shrugged. "Where her eyes should be, it's just dark." Prossert forced a small laugh. "Sounds like a dream." But Molly shook her head again. "It's not a dream. She talked to me last night." "What did she say?" Nayland whispered. Molly smiled. "She said she was lonely. And she was very happy that we moved into her house." At that exact moment, a loud bang echoed from upstairs. All three of them jumped. It sounded like a door slamming shut. Prossert immediately stood up. "Stay here." He walked toward the stairs again. But as he climbed upward, a strange feeling crawled up his spine. Because this time, he could hear something else from the second floor. Not footsteps. Not creaking wood. But the faint sound of another child whispering.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 5. The photograph in the storage room. After the loud bang from upstairs that morning, Prossert searched the entire second floor. Every room. Every corner. But he found nothing. All the doors were closed. The windows were still. And the hallway was completely empty. There was no sign that anyone, or anything, had been there. Still, the uneasy feeling refused to leave him. Later that afternoon, while Nayland took the children outside to explore the yard, Prossert decided to clean the old storage room behind the house. The room was small and dark, filled with years of dust and forgotten belongings from the previous owners. Cobwebs covered the corners of the ceiling. Old wooden furniture leaned against the walls like silent shadows. Prossert opened the window to let in some light. As he began moving a pile of broken chairs, his foot hit something on the floor. A wooden box. It was old and slightly burned along the edges, as if it had once been exposed to fire. Curious, Prossert knelt down and brushed away the thick dust. When he opened the box, the smell of smoke drifted faintly into the air. Inside were several small objects. A child's toy. A cracked hair comb. And at the very bottom, a photograph. Prossert lifted it carefully. The photo showed a family standing in front of the same house. A father. A mother. And two small children. They looked happy, frozen in a moment that must have existed long before the house had fallen into ruin. But something about the photograph immediately felt wrong. Prossert leaned closer. The father's face had been scratched violently. The mother's face too. Deep claw-like marks tore across the image. The older child's face had also been destroyed. Only one person remained untouched. The youngest girl. She stood at the edge of the photo wearing a simple white dress. Her long hair hung over her shoulders. And her small face was perfectly clear. Prossert felt a chill run through his body. Because he suddenly realized something strange. The girl in the photograph looked almost exactly like the girl Molly had described that morning. About the same age. The same long hair. The same white dress. Prossert stared at the photograph for a long moment. Then something even stranger caught his attention. In the background of the picture. Behind the family. Inside the window of the second floor. There was a faint shape. A shadow. The shape of another child standing inside the house. Watching them. Prosser's hands slowly began to tremble. Because there had only been 4 people in the photograph. But now it looked like there had always been 5. And that 5th figure had no face. Chapter 6. The Old Woman's Warning. That evening, the sky above the fields turned dark much earlier than usual. Heavy clouds rolled across the horizon, and the wind carried the distant smell of rain through the sugarcane fields. Prosser could not stop thinking about the photograph. The scratched faces. The little girl in the white dress. And the strange shadow in the window behind the family. Something about it disturbed him deeply. After dinner, he decided to walk down the dirt road toward the village. The only person who had shown any concern about the house was the old woman he had seen earlier. Her name, he had heard from a farmer, was Mei Chan. She lived alone in a small wooden house near the edge of the village. When Prosser approached, the old woman was sitting outside, slowly fanning herself with a palm leaf. Her eyes lifted the moment she saw him. For a long time, she said nothing. It was as if she had been expecting him. "You live in the house at the end of the road," she said quietly. Prosser nodded. "Yes." The old woman sighed deeply. "You should not have bought that house." Prosser hesitated. "Why?" Mei Chan looked toward the darkening road that led back to the fields. Her voice became lower. "Because that house is not empty." Prosser tried to smile politely. "You mean the family who lived there before?" Mei Chan's expression changed. Her eyes grew serious. "Many families lived there before. None of them stayed." Prosser felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine. "What happened to them?" The old woman leaned closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. "The first family died in a fire. The father practiced forbidden rituals. He believed he could call spirits and make them serve his family." Prosser frowned. "Spirits?" Mei Chan nodded slowly. "In Thailand we call them Phi. Restless ghosts." She paused before continuing. "The man tried to bind the spirit of a child. But something went terribly wrong. The wind suddenly grew stronger around them." Mei Chan gripped her walking stick. "The fire that night burned the house and the entire family inside." Prosser swallowed. "But the house is still standing." "Yes," the old woman said. "The walls survived. But the spirits inside did not leave." Her voice trembled slightly. "The little girl's spirit remained there. Lonely. Angry. And waiting." Prosser felt his chest tighten. "Waiting for what?" Mei Chan looked directly into his eyes. "For another family." At that exact moment, thunder rolled across the dark sky. And far away, at the end of the dirt road, the lights inside Prosser's house suddenly flickered. Then went completely dark.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 7. The Sealed Room Upstairs. When Prosser hurried back toward the house, the sky had already opened with heavy rain. Lightning flashed across the dark fields, briefly illuminating the lonely road that stretched toward his home. From far away, the house looked even more unsettling in the storm. All the lights were out. The windows were dark. And the entire structure seemed to stand like a silent shadow against the night. Prosser quickened his pace. As soon as he stepped inside, he called out loudly, "Naylan, Lek, Molly?" For a moment, only the sound of rain hitting the roof answered him. Then Naylan appeared from the kitchen holding a candle. "The power suddenly went out," she said. "The children are upstairs." Prosser felt a small wave of relief. But the uneasy feeling in his chest remained. "Did you hear anything strange?" he asked. Naylan hesitated. "Just something from the hallway upstairs." Prosser grabbed the candle and walked toward the staircase. The wooden steps creaked under his weight as he climbed slowly. At the top of the stairs, the long hallway stretched into darkness. The faint candlelight revealed peeling wallpaper and old wooden doors. One of those doors immediately caught his attention. It was the only door in the hallway that was completely covered with something strange. Several pieces of yellow paper talismans were stuck across the frame. Old ink symbols had been drawn across them. The papers looked ancient, their edges curled and darkened with age. Prosser stepped closer. He had seen similar things before at temples. Protective seals. Used to keep spirits inside a place. Or sometimes, to keep them from coming out. Behind him, Nayland whispered nervously. Why would someone seal a room like that? Prossert reached out and touched one of the papers. It crumbled slightly beneath his fingers. They're old, he muttered. Very old. At that exact moment, a faint sound came from inside the room. Tap. Prossert froze. Then again. Tap, tap? It sounded like something lightly touching the other side of the door. Or perhaps someone. Nayland grabbed his arm tightly. Did you hear that? Prossert nodded slowly. The candle flame flickered violently in the hallway. Then a soft sound came from behind them. A child's voice. Very quiet. Very close. Don't open it. Prossert and Nayland turned instantly. Molly stood at the end of the hallway. Her face pale in the candlelight. Why not? Prossert asked gently. Molly looked toward the sealed door. Her expression was strangely serious. Then she whispered something that made both parents feel cold inside. Because she doesn't like it when people leave. At that exact moment, the sealed door shuddered once from the inside. Chapter 8. The handprints on the wall. That night, none of them slept well. The sealed door upstairs remained closed. The old talisman still hanging across its frame. Prossert had decided not to open it. At least not until morning. Still, the strange tapping sound from inside the room echoed in his mind. Outside, the storm continued through the night. Rain hammered against the roof, and the wind pushed against the wooden walls, making the entire house creak like something alive breathing in the darkness. Prossert finally drifted into a shallow sleep sometime after midnight. But before dawn came, Nayland woke again. Something felt wrong. The air inside the bedroom was strangely cold. She sat up slowly and noticed something unusual. The bedroom door was open. She was certain she had closed it before going to bed. Nayland quietly stepped into the hallway. The house was completely silent. Too silent. Even the storm outside had weakened. The faint gray light of early morning crept through the windows. Then she saw it. At the far end of the hallway wall. Dark shapes. At first, Nayland thought they were shadows from the candlelight. But as she walked closer, her breathing slowly stopped. They were not shadows. They were handprints. Small ones. The size of a child's hands. Dozens of them. Pressed across the wall. Some were high. Some were low. As if something had crawled across the hallway using both hands. But what made Nayland's blood turn cold was the color. The handprints were black. Not like dirt. Not like paint. They looked burned into the wood. Like hands that had been covered in ash or charred by fire. Nayland reached out slowly and touched one of them. The wood felt rough and warm. Almost as if the mark had been freshly made. Behind her, a soft voice suddenly spoke. Mom? Nayland jumped and turned around. It was Molly. Standing in the hallway. Still in her pajamas. Her long hair messy from sleep. Molly, did you come out here during the night? Nayland asked carefully. The girl shook her head. No. Then do you know who made these? Nayland asked. Molly looked at the wall. For a moment, her expression changed. Her smile slowly faded. Then she whispered something that made the hallway feel suddenly colder. She did. Who? Nayland asked. Molly slowly raised her finger. Not toward the wall, but toward the sealed door at the end of the hallway. And at that exact moment, a new handprint slowly appeared on the wooden wall. Right in front of them. As if an invisible hand had just pressed against it.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 9. Molly is not herself anymore. After the handprints appeared on the hallway wall, the atmosphere inside the house changed completely. The air felt heavier. Colder. Even during the daytime, the room seemed darker than before. As if the sunlight itself refused to enter the house. Nayland tried to convince herself that there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe someone from the village had entered the house during the night. Maybe the strange marks were just old stains that had somehow appeared clearer in the morning light. But deep down, she knew none of those explanations were true. Because the handprint had appeared right in front of her eyes. Prosser tried to stay calm for the sake of his family. He scrubbed the wall with water and soap until the wooden surface was nearly scratched raw. For a moment, the black marks faded. But by evening, they had returned. Exactly where they had been before. As if they had never been cleaned at all. That was when they began to notice something else. Something even more disturbing. Molly was changing. The cheerful little girl who had laughed and played in the yard just days ago now spent most of her time upstairs. Often sitting quietly in the hallway near the sealed door. Sometimes whispering softly. As if she were talking to someone standing right beside her. One evening, Nayland found Molly sitting on the floor outside the sealed room. 3 incense sticks were burning in front of her. "Molly, what are you doing?" Nayland asked nervously. The girl slowly turned her head. Her expression was strangely calm. "She asked me to light them," Molly said. "Who asked you?" Molly pointed toward the sealed door. Nayland felt her stomach tighten. "Molly, there's no one inside that room." But the girl shook her head slowly. "Yes, there is." Nayland stepped closer. "Molly, look at me." The girl raised her face. For a moment, Nayland felt her breath stop. Molly's eyes looked different. The warmth in them was gone. They seemed darker. Empty. Then Molly smiled. But it wasn't the innocent smile of a child. It was something colder. Older. "She says our family can stay here forever," Molly whispered. Nayland grabbed her daughter's shoulders. "What are you talking about?" Molly's voice dropped to a soft whisper. She was lonely for a very long time. But now, she has a new sister. At that exact moment, a slow knocking sound came from inside the sealed room. Knock. 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 3 times. Molly's smile slowly widened. "See? She's awake." Chapter 10. The truth about the fire. That night, neither Prosser nor Nayland dared to sleep. The knocking from inside the sealed room had eventually stopped. But the silence that followed was even more terrifying. It felt as if the entire house was listening. Waiting. Molly had finally fallen asleep in her bed, though she had insisted that someone would be visiting her again soon. Those words echoed in Nayland's mind like a warning she could not escape. Early the next morning, Prosser returned to the village to find Mei Chan again. He needed answers. Real answers. The old woman was already awake when he arrived, sitting outside her small wooden house. She looked at his face and immediately understood. "You heard it," she said quietly. Prosser nodded slowly. "There's something inside that room." Mei Chan closed her eyes for a moment, as if remembering something painful. The sealed room was the place where it began. Prosser leaned closer. "What happened in that house?" The old woman's voice became slow and heavy. "Many years ago, the man who lived there believed he could control spirits. He studied forbidden rituals. Dark rituals. In Thailand, there are people who try to bind spirits for protection or fortune. They call them Phi." Prosser felt a cold shiver run down his back. Mei Chan continued. "The man tried to trap the spirit of a dead child. He believed the spirit would bring luck and wealth to his family. But spirits are not servants. They are hungry. And angry." The old woman's hands trembled slightly as she spoke. One night, something went terribly wrong during the ritual. The spirit became violent. The fire started in the sealed room upstairs. It spread through the house within minutes. Prosser swallowed hard. "What happened to the family?" Mei Chan slowly looked toward the distant road. "The father died first. The mother tried to escape with the children. But the doors would not open. The neighbors said they heard screaming all night. Then the house became silent." Prosser felt his heart beating faster. "But the house didn't burn down." "No," Mei Chan whispered. "Because the fire stopped. Suddenly. As if something inside the house wanted the walls to remain." The old woman then looked directly at Prosser. "And when people entered the house the next morning, they found something strange. What? Prosert asked. Mei Chan's voice dropped to a whisper. The youngest girl's body was never found. The wind moved slowly through the sugarcane fields. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Mei Chan said something that made Prosert's blood run cold. Many families have tried to live in that house since then. Every family had a child. And every time, the child began to change. Prosert felt the world around him grow silent. Because the last thing Mei Chan said sounded less like a story and more like a warning. The spirit of that little girl is always looking for a new sister.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 11. The night the house woke up. By the time Prosert returned home from the village, the sun was already beginning to set behind the endless fields. The sky had turned a deep orange, casting long shadows across the dirt road and the old wooden house waiting at the end of it. For the first time since moving there, Prosert felt afraid to walk toward his own home. Mei Chan's words repeated over and over in his mind. The spirit is always looking for a new sister. As he pushed the wooden gate open, the air around the house felt unnaturally still. Even the insects in the fields seemed strangely quiet. Inside the house, Nalan was waiting near the door. Her face looked pale. "You were gone too long," she whispered. "What happened?" Prosert asked. Nalan hesitated before answering. "Molly has been talking again." "To who?" "The girl." Prosert felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Where is she now?" "Upstairs." Without another word, he rushed toward the staircase. The wooden steps creaked loudly beneath his feet as he climbed. At the top of the stairs, the hallway was dim. The sealed door at the end remained closed. But something had changed. The talismans were torn. Several pieces of yellow paper had fallen onto the floor. Prosert's heart began to pound. He slowly walked down the hallway. And then he heard it. Soft whispering. Two voices. One of them was clearly Molly's. The other was not. The second voice sounded thin. Dry. Like something that had not spoken in a very long time. Prosert moved closer to Molly's bedroom door. The whispering stopped. Slowly, he pushed the door open. The room was dark. Only the faint light from the hallway entered. At first, he only saw Molly sitting on the floor. Her back facing the door. Her long hair hanging over her shoulders. "Molly?" he said softly. The girl slowly turned around. Her face was pale. Her eyes looked distant. And she was smiling. "Dad," she said quietly. "You're home." Prosert forced himself to smile. "Who were you talking to?" Molly tilted her head slightly. "You can't see her?" A sudden chill ran through the room. Prosert stepped closer. "Molly, there's no one here." But Molly pointed toward the corner of the room. Prosert looked. At first he saw nothing. Then, for a brief second, something moved in the darkness. A small shape. The size of a child. Standing perfectly still in the corner. Watching them. Prosert blinked. And the shape was gone. But Molly's smile slowly widened. "She likes you," Molly whispered. "She says you can stay too." Then Molly said something that made Prosert's blood run cold. "She says tonight. The whole family is coming." And at that exact moment, from somewhere deep inside the house, a door slowly creaked open. Chapter 12. The family in the darkness. Night fell quickly over the countryside. The last light of the sun disappeared behind the distant hills, leaving the fields and the lonely road wrapped in thick darkness. Inside the house, the air felt heavy, oppressive, as if something unseen had slowly filled every room. Prosert tried to keep his voice calm as he led Molly back to her bed. "You need to sleep," he told her gently. But the girl only smiled. "She said everyone is coming tonight," Molly whispered again. Prosert felt a chill run through him. "Who is coming?" Molly looked toward the hallway. "Our family." Prosert closed the bedroom door and walked downstairs, where Nalan was waiting anxiously. "She's not herself anymore," Nalan said quietly. "I know," Prosert replied. The house creaked loudly above them. Both of them froze. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Coming from the second floor. But Molly was in her room. And neither of them had gone upstairs. The footsteps continued. Creak. Creak. Not just one pair. Several. Moving across the wooden floor. Prossert slowly looked toward the staircase. The hallway upstairs was completely dark. Then something appeared at the top of the stairs. A shadow. The shape of a person. Then another. And another. 3 figures slowly stepped into the faint light. Prossert felt his entire body go cold. A man. A woman. And a child. Their bodies looked burned. Their skin blackened and cracked like charred wood. They stood silently at the top of the stairs. Watching. Behind them, another small figure slowly appeared. A girl. Her long hair hanging down over her shoulders. She wore a simple white dress. Just like Molly had described. But her face had no eyes. Only empty darkness where her eyes should have been. The little girl tilted her head slowly. Then she smiled. The burned man beside her lifted his arm, pointing directly toward Prossert and Nayland. And suddenly, all 4 figures began walking down the stairs. Slowly. Step by step. The wooden steps groaned beneath their weight. Prossert grabbed Nayland's hand. We need to leave, now. But as he ran toward the front door and pulled it open, his heart nearly stopped. The dirt road outside had disappeared into complete darkness. And standing in the yard were more shadows. Dozens of them. All facing the house. Waiting. Behind him, Molly's voice echoed softly from the staircase. Don't go. Prossert turned. Molly was standing there. But she was no longer alone. The eyeless girl stood right beside her, holding her hand. She says we can all stay together now, Molly whispered. Like a real family.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 13. The fire returns. Prossert's heart pounded violently as he stared at the figures slowly descending the staircase. The burned man. The silent woman. The small child. And the eyeless girl standing beside Molly. The temperature inside the house suddenly dropped, and a faint smell began to spread through the air. A smell Prossert recognized immediately. Smoke. Burned wood. The same smell he had noticed the first night in the hallway. Run, he whispered to Nayland. They turned toward the door again. But when Prossert grabbed the handle and pulled, it would not move. The door felt as if something on the other side was holding it shut. Open, Nayland cried. Prossert pulled harder. The wood groaned but refused to give. Behind them, the footsteps continued. Slow. Deliberate. The burned family was halfway down the stairs now. Their blackened faces remained expressionless, their empty eyes fixed on the living couple. The eyeless girl spoke softly. Her voice sounded dry, like ashes falling through the air. You cannot leave. Prossert turned around. What do you want from us? The girl tilted her head. We were a family once. But the fire took everything. Her pale hand tightened around Molly's fingers. Now we need a new one. Nayland shook her head desperately. No, please? But the girl continued speaking calmly. Every house needs a family. And every family needs a place to stay. At that moment, something strange began to happen. Thin lines of smoke started creeping along the wooden walls. The same walls that had once burned years ago. The smell of fire grew stronger. Then suddenly, crack! A long black burn mark appeared across the ceiling. As if invisible flames were slowly spreading through the house again. Prossert grabbed Nayland's arm. We had to get upstairs. The back window. They ran toward the staircase. But the burned family did not move to stop them. Instead, they stepped aside, as if allowing them to pass. Their cracked lips slowly curled into smiles. Prossert froze for a moment. Something about that felt terribly wrong. But the smoke was already filling the hallway. They had no other choice. Prossert grabbed Nayland's hand and rushed past the silent figures. As they reached the top of the stairs, Molly's soft voice echoed behind them. Don't worry. We'll take care of the house." Then the eyeless girl added quietly, "Just like we did before." And somewhere deep inside the walls, the sound of crackling fire began again. Chapter 14. The Empty House. The storm had passed during the night. By morning, the countryside looked calm again. Soft sunlight spread across the sugarcane fields, and the narrow dirt road leading to the old house appeared quiet, just like it always had. But the villagers quickly noticed something unusual. A thin trail of smoke rose slowly into the morning sky from the house at the end of the road. People gathered at a distance, whispering nervously among themselves. No one liked going near that place. But the smoke worried them. Finally, a few brave farmers decided to walk down the road to investigate. Among them was Mei Chan. The old woman moved slowly with her walking stick, her eyes fixed on the house in the distance. When they reached the yard, the front door was already open. The wooden door hung slightly crooked on its hinges, creaking softly in the morning wind. Inside, the house was silent. Too silent. The farmers stepped cautiously into the living room. The air smelled strongly of smoke. But strangely, nothing had burned. The walls were blackened with long scorch marks, as if flames had once crawled across the wood. Yet the house itself was still standing, just like it had years ago. Mei Chan slowly walked deeper inside. "Prosert?" one of the men called out. No answer. "Nalen?" Still nothing. They searched the kitchen. Empty. They checked the bedrooms upstairs. Empty. No sign of the family anywhere. No luggage. No clothes. No footprints. It was as if the Prosert family had simply vanished during the night. One of the farmers noticed something strange in the hallway upstairs. "Over here," he whispered. The others gathered around. On the wooden wall were dozens of small black handprints. The same burned marks Nalen had seen the day before. But now, there were more. Many more. Mei Chan slowly raised her hand and counted. 1, 2, 3, 4 larger handprints. Beside them were several smaller ones, like the hands of children. The old woman closed her eyes sadly. She had seen this before. Another family. Gone. Just like the others. One of the farmers suddenly pointed toward the sealed room at the end of the hallway. The old talismans had fallen completely off the door. The door itself was slightly open. Inside the room, 3 incense sticks were burning quietly on the floor. The smoke rose slowly toward the ceiling. Mei Chan stared into the darkness of the room. Her voice trembled as she whispered. "They stayed." The farmers looked at her in confusion. "What do you mean?" Mei Chan did not answer. Because she could feel it. The house was no longer empty. Not anymore.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.
Chapter 15. The New Family. Months passed after the strange disappearance of the Prosert family. At first, the villagers talked about it constantly. Some believed the family had secretly moved away during the night. Others said the police must have taken them somewhere. But deep down, the people who lived near the sugarcane fields knew the truth was far more disturbing. Because the house at the end of the road had not been empty since that night. Sometimes, late in the evening, faint lights could still be seen glowing behind the old windows. Sometimes, when the wind was quiet, people passing by the road heard something inside the house. Footsteps. Children laughing. Soft whispering. And occasionally, the sound of someone knocking gently on wood. After a few months, the villagers slowly stopped talking about it. Life returned to normal. The fields were harvested. The seasons changed. And eventually, the house was put up for sale again. The price was unbelievably cheap. So cheap that it attracted the attention of someone from another town. One afternoon, a small pickup truck arrived at the end of the dirt road. Inside was another family. A young couple. And their little daughter. The father stepped out of the truck and looked at the house. "It's old," he said. "But we can fix it." The mother hesitated. The house felt strangely cold. But the price was too good to refuse. Meanwhile, Their little daughter wandered toward the yard, staring curiously at the second-floor window. She suddenly stopped walking. Then she waved happily. "Hello," the girl called. Her parents looked at her. "Who are you talking to?" the mother asked. The girl pointed toward the upstairs window. "There are children in the house," she said cheerfully. The parents glanced up. The window looked empty. "Don't be silly," the father said. But the little girl kept smiling. "Two girls and one boy," she continued. "And a mom and dad." She paused. Then her smile slowly widened. "They're waving back." The wind moved quietly through the sugarcane fields. And for a brief moment, if someone had looked carefully at the upstairs window, they might have seen 5 pale shapes standing behind the glass. A burned man, a silent woman, 2 small children, and a girl in a white dress with empty eyes. All of them smiling. Because the house at the end of the road had finally found a new family. And once someone entered that house, they rarely left. To this day, the house still stands at the end of that road. The villagers avoid it after dark. No one dares to go inside. But every once in a while, someone new buys the house, believing the rumors are just old stories. And when night falls, the house becomes quiet again. Until footsteps return. Until children begin to whisper. Because inside that house, the family is still waiting. Waiting for the next one to arrive.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.